a lot of domestic institutional investment into the through the debt route into the rooftop sector. So right now, what we are seeing that there are only HNIs who are participating in the rooftop sector and some private equity players, and very limited amount of debt capital that is there. And most of the domestic institutional investors, like they have the potential of around $18 billion of investment in that through debt mode only. And also the NBFCs, same kind of potential, $18 billion that we're talking about. And then we have development agencies. They are not able to, invest in this sector because there are not enough avenues to enter into the rooftop sector. So in one of the study that the Climate Policy Initiative did last year, the potential is around 56 billion only at the domestic level. Other impact will be on the cost of rooftop solar power, which can be around 11%. And so what we are saying here is that if you see the recent green bond issuance, the coupon rate or the cost has been around 9.3%. And if you see the recent example of Pune Municipal Corporation, it's around 7.5%, the bond that they have raised. So it can actually lower the cost of solar power as well because of the cheaper debt cost. And also what we are seeing that the bonds that are raised through the debt capital which are raised to the bond instrument, the tenor that we have seen, they are like very long, like it can go up to 15 years as well. We have seen the IREDA bond also, which was around 15 years. The third point that we are trying to make here is that, okay, so it can also help municipal corporations to build their capacity to access the capital market. It can be it's not a very huge project also, not much of a risk is there. The thing is, relative to the other projects that municipal corporations take care of, this rooftop solar sector has more commercial feasibility if you compare. So there is a less risk if you go ahead and using this as a learning case for accessing the capital markets, and it can help you for other projects in future. Then we applied, like we tried to calculate what kinds of benefit at these two city levels. We are seeing that, okay, in Surat, rooftop solar has not reached the grid parity as of now in most of the sectors. However, if you use the municipal bond and if the rates are around 9% coupons, then the cost and the tenor is around 15 years, then the cost reduction can be around 11%. And it can bridge the gap between the existing tariff and the rooftop solar cost. Delhi is in most of the consumer category. We are seeing that most of the sectors have already reached the grid parity because of the higher cost in each category on the existing tariff cost. If you use the municipal bond, then actually it will make further case to deploy more rooftop solar in the cities in New Delhi. These are the very broad steps that we have laid out. If municipal corporation want to go ahead with this kind of mechanism, what will be the essential step that they need to follow? More details or sub-steps are in the report. You can go through that. So these are the project development plan and project preparation. You can also, these are the activities which anyways is being taken care by for other projects by the municipal corporation. We can also link the SEKI's program of rooftop grid connected PV, and then that can be merged to take care of this step. Second step is, of course, the incorporation of corporate municipal entity or the master SP that we're talking about. It will take care of raising all the municipal funding. The thing is that when you're going for the incorporation, the point has to be very clearly made out that this entity will also be entering into the capital lease mechanism. Then crediting assessment will be required for the bond to be issued. We also have to look what kind of credit enhancement measures will be required. I'll talk more detail about this step. Then you have to identify who will be the underwriter of the bond issuance. And that underwriter will also take care of the market pitching to the key investor, and especially will also help in finding out the cornerstone investors. Like if you see the recent Masala bond, there was a cornerstone investor, IFC, and that helps a lot to make a good pitch for a municipal corporation. So that will be one of the very important activity if you have to get the traction for other investors as well. And there are several other steps like creating escrow account, etc., which are there in the report. Okay, so there are a lot of challenges to this model, and we have proposed some of the solutions here. First challenge that we have seen is that can municipal corporation play a role of a financial company for the private developer, especially in the rooftop sector? That feasibility we are thinking is low at this point of time, whether it can be done, but impact is huge. If it is done, then okay, it can become a very good model for the other sector as well. So it may require some kind of regulatory interventions. And actually, this entity can also become a financing arm for municipal corporation. And we are seeing the financing arm in the railway sector that IRFC is taking care of for the railways, all the project development and financing. Second issue is of credit rating of the bond. So they are very like most popular use solution like partial credit risk guarantee, which can be used. And we have talked to some of the development agencies like USAID, and they have said they have provided such kind of guarantees in past for the municipal corporations, and they are ready to do that again. And we also calculated, like estimated the size of this PCG for the rooftop sector, and we have found like as against the 50% of the total debt that was required in the form of the credit guarantee in the past municipal bonds issuance. For the rooftop sector, we found it was around 31%. So it's pretty less as compared to that. And then we can also create similar sort of first loss fund, and that can be capitalized by using National Clean Energy Fund. That's one of the suggestions. And of course, you have to do proper due diligence in the selection of project developers and the consumers. We are already working on this, how we can create a matrix, how to select the developers in other projects. Third main issue is the reluctance of municipal corporations, and many of them. So what we are seeing, but now we are seeing that municipal corporations are getting more active in this space, and it actually can help in cleaning your books and become more transparent if you go ahead with this kind of mechanism. Last issue that we have mentioned is the high transaction cost. It will be a new model, so there may be a lot of learning required, so there will be like high transaction cost in the beginning, and the size of the asset may be not that big initially. So one solution can be if you can pool as many projects at the city level, or combine some of the cities to pool their asset and then go ahead with the issuance of the bond. Thank you, and then I will ask Greg to conclude.
Finally, the last words on this. Thank you so much for your interest in our study. So the results of our study really show that our proposed municipal bond OPEX model can help municipalities to raise the necessary capital to promote OPEX models in general, but also to achieve the national target of 40 gigawatts of rooftop solar. But in order to fully exploit the potential of our model, there are a number of policy recommendations we would like to articulate. First of all, we need a necessary regulatory intervention to allow municipalities, corporations to play the role of a financier, which have already been discussed. And we said it's going to be, the probability is going to be low, and this is exactly why we would like to put this up front there. This, of course, is a necessary step to implement our model. And then, of course, building the financial partnerships, not just between municipalities and banks, but also local developers. So that's the study. Thank you so much for listening. And what we're going to do now is...
Great. So, thanks.
Yes. Any question? There we go.
We have a slight change in the order of the program. We're very delighted to have Ms. Sharmila Chavaly here, and unfortunately, she cannot stay for the panel discussion because of some important and urgent meeting. But thank you so much for coming and agreeing to come. So may I request you to please address, based on this report and your own experience, how municipalities can actually become financiers of not only infrastructure, but also green infrastructure based on your experience. Thank you once again for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Kathuria and Mr. Shrimali. And first of all, my profuse apologies for A, keeping you from your break, and B, my apologies for coming late, but joint secretaries, however impressive this looks, we are very small cogs in the wheels of, we just rush from meeting to meeting when we are told, so this is what's happened. Again, my apologies. I've read this report, and actually it's a very opportune time for me to talk about this, because those of you who are following it would be aware that the day before yesterday, Pune municipal bonds were launched. They're listing tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock on the Bombay Stock Exchange. This is for a water supply project of about 3,500 crores. The bonds are going to raise about 2,500 crores in 5 tranches. The first tranche is 200 crores. It was oversubscribed in the book building exercise about 7 times the day before yesterday. We are very, very pleased with that. We also expect a lot of other cities to do this. It's been a 3+ year endeavor of the this department working with urban development and various municipalities to see this through. I read the report. We've been also working with CPI on various initiatives that we are testing through an incubator lab for changing the financing costs in renewable energy, because we all are aware of the problems that the renewable energy sector faces. One of the things of interest to us in this particular study is, can rooftop solar be made into a viable business model? The naysayers say it's impossible because they're too small, and the structure is such that it doesn't fit into a standard business model for good financing through bonds. I just heard the fag end of the remarks that were made on, is it possible to have another structure? I think municipal bonds, so far as the municipalities are concerned, can be used in 2 ways. In our scheme, there are 5 essential conditions for municipal bonds. One is financial disclosure and financial discipline, which means that the balance sheets of the city are out on the net. 2, a shelf of projects. That is, any investor who's engaged with the city needs to engage long time. He isn't going to expend his resources and time for just a one-off bond issuance. 3, scale of bond. It should justify the cost of issuance, which is high, because the municipality has to engage transaction advisors and investment bankers for this. 4, as far as possible, have ring-fenced projects so that an investor knows that these are the projects which are going to be completed by a certain time, and there's no fungibility of money that comes in. And the most important feature, escrow the bond servicing. Whatever is the scheme or the method to be followed, whether it's user charges, whether it's support from the ULB, whether it's any other form, all those monies get into an escrow account so that the bond investor knows that there's no uncertainty of payments. Our bonds are not underwritten by a sovereign. Yes, of course, there is an implicit guarantee because they are in the end under the governments, but there is no explicit guarantee. Ideally, we would not like any kind of tax subsidy. There are no tax-free bonds. Initially, to kickstart this and establish proof of concept, I understand that Ministry of Urban Development is offering a certain amount of a grant subsidy. Long term, that perhaps won't last, and the municipalities are aware of this. But the other thing that was said, and I think I saw it on the last slide when I came in, is the credit rating. All the municipalities which have to raise these bonds have to be rated. One of the things that we expect to happen, maybe I hope in the next month or so, is there's a credit enhancement fund that was announced by the finance minister in last year's budget. For reasons relating to how the provisioning will be done when it is set up as an NBFC, some regulatory clearances are still awaited. But that fund, that credit enhancement facility, is actually ideal for some structure like this, because they can then buy that notching up of the rating, which will allow them to become investable grade for various long-term pension funds, insurance funds, etc. We hope that happens within the next month. I'm keeping my fingers crossed, but it should happen. Lastly, on the structure that will suit the financing of such projects. The plain vanilla municipal bond is the ULB goes out, issues a bond, funds its projects. The other kind of standard thing is a PPP project under ULB. The SPV that is implementing that PPP can go out and raise bonds. These are not technically municipal bonds. They are corporate bonds, which are under the Companies Act. But sometimes the municipality may want to fund its share of an SPV, which is implementing, if it's a partner in the SPV. That also could be one of the ways it raises bonds. The third structure that we are currently working on, and a couple of the people I'm working on here with our sitting in the audience is, can we think of a trust structure for cities that are too small to go out on the strength of their individual balance sheets, or in a city, in certain states, there are certain cities which may have some intraconnectivity projects, etc., which require, say, pooled financing. So can we have a trust structure which is either intrastate or interstate? Hypothetically, let's say that the capital cities of the Northeast want to raise bonds. Perhaps they're too small, even the project size, to justify this as individual bonds. So could we have a trust structure? Here we've run into some issues, again, with the regulators on how a trust fund will be regulated. We are working on that. But one of the options we could look at for something like this is a solar project. One, if you have a sponsor who has a large set of individual projects, maybe a cluster of solar rooftops in area A, another in area B. If the scale is large enough, bundle them together in an InvIT, an infrastructure investment trust, outside of municipal bonds, but that is one way, because one of the key requirements in renewable energy is releasing your equity. An InvIT offers that option for you to release your equity. For municipal bonds themselves, I would still need to get some data, if I can get that, on the size, because if we can bring this, any municipal bond related to a project, we have to look at scalability. So is it scalable? If the projects are very small, perhaps it doesn't make sense to have a municipal bond financing it. Solar rooftops would ideally fit one of the initiatives that we have taken from the government, which is the expected loss method of credit rating of infrastructure projects, a new scale, with green tags for projects that have sustainability features built into either design, construction, operation, or are essentially in the renewable sector, for instance, solar rooftops, which would mean that you could raise green bonds, you could go out and tap those green funds themselves. So if there's any, after any discussion, there's any proposal that you all want to make to SEBI, who regulates municipal bonds through us, we'd welcome them. But for this, we'd like to see some numbers. Because without numbers, speaking, just theoretically, I can't also make a case with SEBI. So I'd request those numbers. But municipal bonds, certainly. Conceivably, if we are looking at a certain sponsor who set up these across 3-4 cities, maybe a trust structure for such bonds also. I don't know. I still don't know this. I haven't seen the numbers. But this is the way forward. So these are the options that you could consider for bond financing also.
Thank you.
Take some questions. Ms. Sharmila Chavaly has agreed to take a few questions before we break. If there are any questions, please, from the audience. Please make your questions brief and identify yourselves as well.
Ma'am, my name is Chetan Pathak. I am from BSES Rajdhani. We are a DISCOM operating in Delhi. So, my point was that instead of municipal corporations doing this, if a DISCOM, just replacing the entire model with a DISCOM, so they are having a credit rating for all the DISCOMs we are having. Now, adding a green edge to this, DISCOMs, if IPDS scheme is also integrated and a DISCOM gets a benefit of and it is these green initiatives are covered under IPDS, then what will happen? A DISCOM will be proactively doing these in their region. Second point was regarding the demand aggregation part. DISCOM is in a better situation of handling these demand aggregation tasks, first of all, and secondly, they know the pain points where the congestion areas are more. So the area where power theft and so government is also launching agricultural feeder scheme also for solar initiatives. So similarly, a rooftop schemes integrated with all those areas where the congestion is more, reliability quotient is less. In that areas, if we propagate solar, it will be an advantageous situation for a DISCOM as well as the consumers who wants a reliable power. proposition if we involve a DISCOM into this, and also the escrow part. So since every consumer wants electricity, their pain point is to get a reliable source of electricity. Electricity can become, and the solar has been came as an alternative which they can be used in a cheaper way, or it can also enhance their reliability. So until unless DISCOM is not involved in such initiatives, so and in that model which you have shown in the slides for OPEX, net metering is not covered in that. So in that, if you want to involve a DISCOM, it will be a better proposition, and it can be expanded in a much faster manner and much more reliable manner, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's take, for, yes, yes, and then, yes, yes.
My name is Tilak Arora. My question is to the lady and Saurabh about the financing part of it. As far as I understand, in the USA, most of the municipal bonds are tax-free. Can it be done in India also, so that the local as well as the outside investors come? And if they know the interest is tax-free, you can get a lot of resources when the need is billions of dollars.
Thank you. And this is, yes.
I just want to know as to why in India solar power has been indicated only with solar PV. There are solar thermal technologies available which do not need any land, and you can set up thousands of megawatt on the eastern coast of India where very great depths are available near to the land. This proposal was given about 20 years ago, but there is a point which you may like to clarify. The PPA could not be signed because Government of India refused to give counter guarantee for the payment. And the banks which wanted to give the loan, they refused to give unless under counter guarantees are available. That time the Chief Minister of Rajasthan, Mr. Bharat Singh Shekhawat, said that he will give the counter guarantee. The company came here, they carried out all the survey, I'm talking about 95. And when they were ready to set up the plants, they said the government counter guarantee, yes, but the state electricity board will sign the agreement. And when the auditors went into the bank balance of state electricity board, they were all in the red. So the projects failed.
Last question.
No, I don't have a question. I was just responding to that DISCOM point. The DISCOMs may be there, but this is an initiative for municipalities, and it's also important to look at if while the DISCOMs can do it, the municipalities can also be attempted. Just one small point. Well as structuring, raising, credit enhancement, all that is fine. At one level, the municipality needs to get incentivized to do this. When the report talked of devolving, now devolving targets to municipalities, we have seen that for many, many years. We have devolved responsibilities without financial strengthening the responsibilities. It doesn't really work. So that part of policy issue where the municipality has incentives to do it, because it's ultimately a market mechanism which is working, that aggregation is required. Thank you.
It'll have to be short because
Very
I'm
short,
in a bit
Arvind.
of a rush to leave. Yeah.
I'm Arvind Kumar from Edelweiss. There was a lot of depredation when these bonds were coming, and against that, the great success of the Pune bonds. What's your analysis? Secondly, there's some cashless flush municipality which don't require bonds. So maybe I think NDMC. So Raisa, the other going for bonds in these municipalities.
I think that's it. I'll just take the last part of your question first. Those who don't need it don't need to raise money. There's no whip. Okay, I mean, only if they need money, they have to raise it. I'll take these in the order that they were asked. One is DISCOMs. So with all due respect, there are DISCOMs and there are DISCOMs. Okay, your DISCOM, Rajdhani, maybe one DISCOM, but I think all of us and everyone in this room is familiar with what has been happening in the past side. There are some DISCOMs, I think, if they were to go into the market, it would be a joke. Okay, so I think Dhruva has answered the other part of your question. Certainly, DISCOMs going out, and DISCOMs would then have to be registered, and possibly you would have a different scheme, but whatever is applicable, and this also answers a little bit of what this gentleman here had asked, you have to understand that there'll be no guarantees from the state, never any guarantees from the central government. We burnt our hands once. I think we burnt all our limbs in one counter guarantee, and we've learnt the bitter way. And this also actually answers the first question that was asked by the last speaker. The reason Pune has worked, and the reason it has taken us so long to cook this model is, we learned from the mistakes made earlier, and I'm not talking of mistakes in terms of previous municipal bond issues. I'm talking of mistakes in how municipalities view their finances. One is you can't have a fungible kitty into which money goes, and it's like, the ministries and they have any projects. These have to be ring-fenced projects. The project has to be identified upfront. DPRs are out, available. Timelines are given, COD, who are the users, what is the financing structure, everything is up. Balance sheets of the municipalities have to be on the net, and there's a regular disclosure thereafter. SEBI regulations require 6 months. There are some problems in terms of the Act. We are ironing those out. Maybe there'll be provisional balance sheets given and then the regular. But the lag cannot be more than 1 year, because then after that, investors are also interested in knowing what happens. 3, do not make this a tiny little issue just to show that you're making an issue. It has to be an established source of funding for that municipality, which means that if you don't need the funds, you really don't need to go in for this. But if you are a cash-strapped municipality in terms of finding capex to put into projects, this is one option. The other thing that we did is the credit rating conditions that have been put in place for a municipality, because it requires a minimum rating to go out and raise these things, have been very stringent, which means that entire discipline has to be there. We've also ensured that there's institution building within the municipality, because one of the things that happens is the mayors, the municipal commissioners, they keep changing 3 years or so. And this is not an exercise that we can do every 2-3 years to convince people that this has to work. We need to build this in, so we've done a huge task of capacity building. In fact, that took 2 years, where everyone realized that this is just a source, but it has to be accompanied with discipline. So that was the reason it took so long. And we've also been very careful in which cities access this, because there was this question, I think, on the tax-free bond structure. From the Ministry of Finance, we are not encouraging tax-free bonds anymore. They have distorted the bond yield curve. The Reserve Bank has been extremely unhappy about what we've been doing. They crowd out other bond issuances. In India, we don't have a corporate bond market. This is one of the few ways in which we are kickstarting that. Again, ideally, we would want zero. The US GBOs, the general obligation bonds, etc. These are not what we are looking at. A structure that is sustainable in terms of financing. A municipality has to know that it's going out and competing for funds. That's the reason we didn't do it. But again, because proof of concept is being established just now, UD has proposed, it has a grant scheme under the smart cities or under Amrut, I think. It has a grant component. It has, if I recall what they're doing, they're going to link that partial subsidy that they're going to give, that is the tax, they're going to match that tax foregone kind of element through this, but that has to necessarily, it's a carrot stick policy. You have to go out and raise bonds. They have that structure. Because in the end, a tax-free structure means that we are losing some money from the central government. And the way the central government is functioning, we are desperate for capex, which we need to put in. So that's the reason why we are also not looking at it. The other questions that were asked about net metering, that is part of the scheme. That is, I won't answer that. And I also won't be able to answer why thermal and not solar PV, because I'm not an expert in this. All the cases I have seen in the last few years have been PV. Why a PPA was not signed because a central guarantee was not given, with hindsight, or even with foresight, I can say, well done to the central government for refusing to sign, agree to a counter guarantee. So far as a workable thermal model, there are experts around the table also. I would suggest that you can give the suggestion to us. We'll send it to the Ministry of Renewable Energy. Renewable Energy is extremely open to ideas. They currently are open to listen. I have a time constraint, so maybe you can just give it to Gireesh later and I'll take it with that. Okay, okay, one request. Send it to me. No, Please send it to me. No, send it to me. I'll forward it. But the only other thing is sometimes there's a deluge of suggestions they get. Courtesy would demand that they at least acknowledge it, but I can't answer for them. But I promise that we will forward it. The other was on, I think I've answered all the questions. Counter guarantees, no. Municipalities, discoms. Again, the model is, I think that's it, okay? And
there was an element of devolving the plans, central plans, municipalities with finance.
Okay, one last thing. Dhruva's suggestion on having this made some kind of an incentivized structure, actually that's brilliant, Dhruva, because I was thinking, states have RPO obligations. Why can't we ask municipalities to do that? It's a good idea. It hadn't occurred to me earlier. I've asked Gireesh also to talk to municipalities, and obviously this feedback is that there's no incentive for them. So let me see if we can suggest that RPOs be built into municipalities also. I think that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Yeah, and this other thing we'll see. So far as the central plan funds devolving, etc., I think the way that the central plans go to the states, there are enough schemes which are not commercially viable. So for me to take something that is inherently commercially viable based on, say, user charges, etc., why would the state want to cross-subsidize those? I mean, that would be, I'm not from Department of Expenditure, thank God, so I don't have to look at it, but that would be my knee-jerk kind of response to something like that, okay?
Thank you so much.
So,
well, thank you. It's been an extended session, but I think it's been worth it, and thank you, Ms. Chavaly, for agreeing to come and address the audience, and we started with Mr. Lavasa, and we've ended with Ms. Chavaly. I think it's been a wonderful, mouth-watering session, and thank you very much. And there's been tremendous insights, and and the mood, I think, has been very positive. And the fact that we're looking at municipal bonds with such interest and excitement, I think, in a broad sense, reflects a paradigm shift from how we used to finance city and urban infrastructure in the past and how we are going to do it in the future. There are, of course, challenges, and we have to confront those challenges, but we have to also recognize that the center cannot continue to do what it's been doing in the past, so we better get our house in order, which Ms. Chavaly has so eloquently said. So thank you all very much, and we will have opportunity to answer your other questions, because Gireesh is going to moderate a panel discussion amongst some of the panelists here who've come, and you. So please wait, have some tea and coffee and some biscuits, and we'll be back in about 15 minutes. Thank you all very much.